Welcome to Creature Guide Live. For those of you that don't know, my name is Ethan. We're going to be changing up the schedule, and we're going to be going over prehistoric to current animal news from around the world, as well as checking out some interesting videos. So let's
What
bump
did
right
you
in.
mean by changing up the schedule?
Okay, we're going to be starting it around our first live stream at 10 a.m. and then our second live stream at 6 p.m. So let's get into it. Goodnewsnetwork.org. The tiger population doubled in India in just 10 years. These three don't look too excited about it, but I think I
No, they
know
don't.
why. Let's see.
That one guy's sticking his tongue out at us. But
Yeah, I think he was drinking water though. Let's see. So, conservation India successfully doubled the native population of tigers in the decade before the COVID-19 pandemic. A new study reveals in 2010, the nations that make up the remaining range countries of the tiger set a target to double the number of wild tigers worldwide. A goal called T by 2-10 at the St. Petersburg International Summit on Tiger Conservation. I haven't heard of this type of goal. The idea was that by 2022, the year of the tiger in the Chinese zodiac, the countries across the Indo Pacific, East and South Asia, and Russia would have enough time to effectively support tiger conservation. Well, that's interesting. They're basing it off of this. Guess not too surprised. Still, though, I'd like to see what's going on within the mainland, especially in these different protected areas within India, considering I think there are around 58 tiger reserves within India, at least as of 2023. So by 2022, the objective was estimated to have been achieved when measured across the animal's whole range. But within that achievement were several localized triumphs even more impressive. Nepal, but also India, had seen their native populations of tiger double. Despite being the world's most populous state, Indian governments were able to make room for tigers across 53,360 square miles. Let's see. So I'm guessing that's a little over 80,000 square kilometers. And I am quite shocked that there is that much space available specifically for tigers. So by 2018, India's native tiger population clawed its way above 3,600. I think I remember that. Along with being 75% of the world's tiger population. Is it really? Well, I know it has the largest tiger population in Asia, but I was thinking that maybe. Well, if you look at alone, like even countries like Russia, Thailand, they're fairly tiny in percentage compared to India. Like I think Russia might have the largest one. They're around 600 to 700 tigers over in eastern Russia, and now they're moving into northeastern China, which is good to see. However, there has been conflict within certain small populated Russian areas because apparently it looks like certain diseases have killed their wild boar population, which is a major food source for Amur tigers, subspecies tiger over in extreme East Russia. And I think even certain deer populations have been a bit low. So let's see. Published in a study in Science recently, extensive monitoring of the big cat across 20 Indian states every 4 years revealed this increase in the number of tigers, but also the amount of protected tiger habitat. As well as there being twice as many tigers since 2006, there's 30% more habitat where they live. 30%. Wait, I don't, I don't understand what it means by that. This study presents findings that tigers do better in areas of higher economic development where locals and visitors can afford tiger tourism. Oh, okay. I was thinking of an urban area. And governments compensate for tiger related losses. In contrast, poor states see increases of human tiger conflict that make it difficult for the world's largest cat to endure. I'm guessing this is due to lack of protected areas within these regions. So they don't have any tourism over there. I don't think you're even allowed to fight off the tigers. In fact, I think all wild animals within India have um I'm just trying to think of their civil rights. It's pretty insane. So, sharing land with the growing Indian population is increasingly difficult for both man and tiger, but conflict isn't as common as you think. We lose 35 people to tiger attacks every year. Wow, I didn't realize it was that high. I thought it was almost nothing. People would get attacked, but not killed.
Well, wait a minute. And we're talking about what country?
India.
Well, it is almost nothing.
No, I mean, yeah,
Well,
that is true, but I was just, I guess, thinking to another area, but I'm not sure what that is. 150 to leopards. It's different. That's definitely an increase, but there's also, um, aside 4,000 to 5,000 tigers, there's somewhere around 13,000 leopards within India. Additionally, 50,000 people die from snake bites. I'm guessing those many of them are coming from cobras. Possibly a certain other venomous snakes just aren't hitting me. In fact, within tiger reserves, you're more likely to die from a car accident than from a tiger attack. Probably because they constantly drive away when certain tigers start trotting to them if they're not resting. So, the World Wildlife Fund, which was very involved with the T by 2 goal, published an article late last year entitled Five Reasons for Hope for Tigers in 2025. Detailing how the cats were spreading naturally into the forests of northern Thailand, northeast China, and northern Myanmar, as well as the extensive preparations made by Kazakhstan for the reintroduction of the tiger in the south of that country, where it had been extinct for over a century. Yeah, they recently reintroduced, uh, was it three tigers, I think, into the region, which is not necessarily good. They need a lot more. If you want a sustainable population and also with enough genetic variety. They didn't include that camera traps in Sumatra, so this is over on an island of Indonesia. Recently recorded three times as many sightings of the Sumatra tiger subspecies than ever before. Okay, that I have not heard of. That's really interesting to see. Okay, anything else? Nope, that's it. Okay, we didn't get any info though on recent.
it didn't give numbers, did it? Wait a
No,
minute.
no, it didn't. It just said 2018 to 3600. That was a while back now. Yeah, we have no idea. Okay, well, let's head over to the first article. I mean, video. Oh, yeah, this thing where the sea lion popped on board. They ever give him any fish or oh, he wanted to take their fish.
I never saw this, so I thought it looked funny.
Unless I'm thinking of another incident, which this I think this has occurred on other boats as well.
He's just
He's very polite
I
too.
know. Oh, let me look. Can't get anything.
Oh, he's trying to prevent the sea lion from taking them. I thought maybe he was going to oh, he is.
He's feeding them.
And there's more,
Wait, is it gonna come up too?
probably. They must be moving pretty slow now.
I was gonna say, how fast can those things swim to jump on the
Oh,
okay, he's not as polite.
is can't tell if this is a California sea lion or a South American sea lion. I'm also looking at the coast as well. I'm really wondering if it's South American sea lion.
They're not gonna have anything left to fish with.
Yeah, they're much larger than the California sea lions.
Get off.
And yes, sea lions are seals.
Did he just eat them all?
I don't see any more.
He's digging for something, so, yeah. Or oh, no, they bring them out for them. It's the other boat has people in there watching.
Oh, well,
I assume that's what's going on.
I don't know. It just seemed to be
He bit it in half.
fishing. Okay, well, that was interesting. Hopefully the sea lion continues to get more fish. Maybe even been
On his own?
yeah, not have to steal anybody's. If if that was theft. So from IFLscience.com, so heading back in time, a new lineage of tropical mammoths is discovered in Mexico. So let's take a look at this. Okay, so this makes sense. This would be some lineage of Colombian mammoths. This is far too far south for any populations of woolly mammoths to occur. There were mastodons in the area, though, but they probably had a lot less fur than certain populations further north. A new lineage of mammoth has been discovered in Mexico. Well, this isn't surprising. Um, what's that region over in the southern part of the country? Oaxaca has had around 200 Colombian mammoth specimens at least found in the area. So there were definitely sinkholes or tar pits in not just California, where anybody that is somewhat associated with the Ice Age and tar pits probably thinks of. But there are,
Oaxaca's a state. I think it's also a city within the state, but
well, it's specifically
it's
within
on the
that,
coast.
yeah, but specifically there, in that southern part of the country is where many Colombian mammoths have been discovered. So while we usually think of these shaggy ice age giants roaming icy landscapes and temperate plains, the find shows that North American mammoths were more genetically diverse and more widespread than previously appreciated. Well, also, Columbian mammoths in general did not inhabit very snowy or just extremely frigid areas that the woolly mammoths would have. In fact, many of the regions that the Columbian mammoths would have inhabited in the United States were quite mild when it came to the overall climate, at least for an animal that weighed also much more than the woolly mammoth and was much taller too. Okay, so let's see. So in late 2019, construction workers unearthed several large prehistoric bones during the construction of the new airport at the old Santa Lucia Air Force Base north of Mexico City. Okay, that's interesting. I did not hear about this. I'm guessing these probably belong to either mastodons or Columbian mammoths in the area, maybe ground sloths, since you do have Aramatherium, which was the second largest ground sloth to exist. Well, close. It depends on what species of Aramatherium, but I'm just not sure what exactly they discovered here. But that is interesting. Let's see. After years of digging, archaeologists had excavated a trove of at least 200 Columbian mammoths. Oh, this this was all within that span of time. I didn't realize that. Mammothus columbi, as well as dozens of other ancient mammals. Wouldn't doubt maybe they found some saber-toothed cats in the area, since you probably did have specifically Smilodon fatalis inhabiting different parts of Mexico. Smilodon populator, the largest species of Smilodon, probably you don't usually see Smilodon populator until you reach South America.
Are you
Areas,
saying populator?
yes.
Okay.
So areas like Colombia, Venezuela, down to Brazil. Columbian mammoths have been found in some coastal regions of Central America, but the ones discovered at St. Lucia were remarkable in both quality and quantity. DNA breaks down quickly in warmer climates, but these specimens were in surprisingly good shape. Plus, recent advances in DNA analysis have also made studying them far easier. This provided researchers with the first opportunity to study the genetics of tropical mammoths, and the results were striking. Let's pull up a picture of a herd of Colombian mammoths. Did I spell Colombian? Okay. So these animals were somewhere around 13 feet in height or pushing 4 meters and weighing somewhere around 10 to 12 tons. So they were much larger than bush elephants today over in the Serengeti. And the woolly mammoth was around the size of an Asian elephant, but instead, the Asian elephant today is a very thin fat layer because it simply doesn't need it. However, woolly mammoths had some of the thickest fat layers of any mammal to exist. As well, they had, let's see, their tusks were definitely much more curved compared to other species of not just elephant, but mammoth in general. Columbian mammoths, they were much straighter. There was like a slight curve. It's also very possible that these animals only had sparse bits of fur all over their body, and probably similar to elephants today in many instances, because even elephants, forest elephants, bush elephants, they are covered in fur. It's just in very small quantities, and probably have a little tuft of fur at the end of their tail, and probably a bit of a not necessarily a goatee, but a bit of fluff under their chin. So they've also had likely very small ears compared to their body size, probably somewhat similar in shape, if not smaller, than today's Asian elephants. And well, in this instance, this actually, I think, is supposed to replicate a more northern population of Columbian mammoths. Maybe though I don't believe it's a woolly mammoth. Though it could be. What was it specifically? Also, the ancestor to the Columbian mammoth, which is the steppe mammoth, as well as the woolly mammoth. It's actually a hybrid of the two that became its own species during the Pleistocene. So well over 150,000 years ago during the Ice Age. But this individual, it's just these guys don't seem to have a very thick layer of fur. So it's possible either it's a steppe mammoth or it's just a northern group or population of Columbian mammoths. They just happen to be a bit furrier. Let's see. Oh, so when referring to mammoths, and pretty much it applies to all species, when looking at their dental structure, that's somewhat very flat and smooth compared to the dental structure of mastodons. So that means when looking at specifically the teeth that these animals are feeding on a wide variety of different grasses of the mammoth steppe. And likely couldn't really feed on any species of grass today in different parts of Eurasia or different areas of Europe, Asia, as well as North America. And um, mammoths didn't really reach South America. The mastodons did, but it's also unlikely at this point that mastodons could feed on really any of the deciduous trees in different parts of North America and South America. Now, maybe they could, but they're not going to get the nutrition um, that they would have access to back in the Ice Age. Okay, so I guess let's check out anything else that was going on over there. So there's definitely a lot of evidence to suggest that mammoths roamed in herds, especially Columbian mammoths like today's elephants. It is a bit of a question, though, as to whether or not the males and the females would have stuck to their own groups, because you have it where the males will form bachelor herds and the females with older females as well as their calves. But, another thing would be one other question is, how long of a time span would something like a male Columbian mammoth be able to stay with the herd as he was growing up? Was he kicked out of the herd at 6 years of age, like what happens to many species or many populations of Asian elephant? Or like the bush elephant, is it until he's like 12 to 14, sometimes even older?
So basically, they get to live their lives together. Well, they get old, don't they?
Yeah, elephants, I think African elephants, especially bush elephants, live longer, can reach somewhere between 60 to 80 years. So there are instances where
Basically, they live into their teenage. They stay home until they're finish being teenagers.
it can happen. Um,
I thought that's what you just said. 16 years old.
no, somewhere between 12 to 14. It has occurred with older individuals, but I've also noticed where if you have a certain elephant individual that becomes injured and in a way where it has a lot of trouble feeding itself or even taking care for itself, the mother will actually stay with it for a number of years after a healthy calf would stay in the herd.
So wait, so they stay together, or the mother leaves with the child?
No, both the child and her stay with the herd, but because like it has some sort of a problem, they just end up taking care of it. So they have their own special needs areas. In a new study, scientists at the National Autonomous University of Mexico and colleagues studied the DNA of dozens of Colombian mammoths recovered from the basin of Mexico, including 73 found at St. Lucia and 10 more from Toltepec. Toltepec. They then compared these genetic sequences with those of Columbian mammoths from the US and southern Canada, as well as woolly mammoths from northern Eurasia and the northernmost parts of North America. Yeah, woolly mammoths, you could probably find them in areas corresponding with northern New York State or southern Ontario, different parts of Quebec that were probably roaming the area. You also had a lot less boreal forests in the region at that time. So that's how the mammoths were able to find um, enough food to feed on, is because the mammoth steppe did inhabit different parts of, well, a large proportion of North America. But you also would have had different forests where the mastodons could feed as well. So they then compared. Oh, I already said that. Let's see. The findings showed that the Mexican mammoths, specifically Colombian mammoths, represent a previously unknown lineage. A deep genetic divergence likely began around 416,000 to 307,000 years ago between this Mexican population and the northern population of Colombian mammoths. Wow, that's a big time gap, but that's really interesting to see. After this split, the groups remain largely separate and barely intermingled with each other. Now, that's even more interesting that there isn't any sign of mixing between that specific population, Columbian mammoths, and Columbian mammoths further north in different parts of Texas, New Mexico, California, Utah. So that is quite interesting. The difference is so profound that some researchers suggest we would consider the Mexican population to be something truly distinct from previously known mammoths. Should we really be calling it a Columbian mammoth or give it a new name, a Mexican mammoth? Oh, wait a second. Is this suggesting that this is a completely new species of mammoth and that it's not just a different subpopulation, so just making a subspecies? Adrian Lister, a paleobiologist at the Natural History Museum in London, who is not involved in the research. Columbian mammoth fossils are generally found between southern Canada throughout parts of the US and dipping into central Mexico. Some of this natural range overlapped with their cousins, woolly mammoths. Yeah, you could say southern Canada, probably different parts of even maybe Manitoba, Saskatchewan, which is over in somewhat central Canada, Alberta. And let's see. Oh, so it's been previously suggested that the Columbian mammoth may be the product of hybridization between woolly mammoths and other Eurasian species, steppe mammoth, Mammothus trogontheri, but this new discovery adds more nuance to the family tree.
Nuance.
Oh, nuance. Researchers indicate that woolly mammoths may have already divided into different genetic groups before they hybridized with a steppe mammoth like lineage, and these differences were passed on to the Columbian mammoth. Another possibility is that separate populations of woolly mammoths hybridized with the same steppe mammoth like group at different times, creating multiple distinct mitochondrial lineages in the Columbian mammoth. Either way, it's evident that the mammoths found in Mexico have very different backstory from those found elsewhere in North America. Hmm. I guess I'd like to take a look at the study that went on here, considering there's definitely a lot going on with the different DNA structures of that southern lineage of Columbian mammoth. But so far, I'm not sure if anything suggests it's a completely different species, but we'll have to look. Okay, so let's head on to the next video.
This is put up by Trailcam on X.
So it seems to be just a red fox and her pups. They seem pretty healthy.
I saw this. It looks so cute that I just put it up.
This is back in 2020 in the mid spring.
So there's no AI here
Nope.
unless they AI'd the date.
Oh, that never hit me.
Oh, now we're at night. Wait, is this the same thing?
It's on the same day.
Yeah, it's the same hill. I'm looking at.
I think earlier in the morning.
I'm seeing both ends of it where it was still light out. It's the same tree and bushes. I think.
Wherever this is, it either got a heat wave or
I think they're just pounding down the grass right there, or the whatever that is.
okay, so this is slightly later that day. It's definitely a massive bedding area. Not sure it's by them or some deer were laying there at one point.
That one fox took over that other one really easy.
Yes,
And
they seem to be full of energy and they're being well fed.
they just look happy.
I think there were what, 6 or 7 of them.
No, are there that many?
Um,
Hold on, go back to the beginning.
there's there's
No, there's
another
only
one in the
3 at 4
background.
of them. There's 4 that we're seeing.
Oh,
Oh, wait a minute. Is there another one back there I'm missing? No. No, there's 4.
that's interesting. At first, it seemed like there were many more. Okay, well, that's good to see. Let's head on to the next article. So, from phys.org. One of the world's oldest dinosaurs discovered in Argentina. Oh, that's good to see. Argentina is a haven for early or mid Triassic dinosaur species, which is when the dinosaurs first evolved.
Why isn't it moving?
That's weird. There we go.
Uh-oh.
So what do we have here? So some skeleton of a small long-necked reptile. Is this an ancestor to a certain group of archosaurs? Because if it's a reptile, that would not be a dinosaur. Named Horacursor huagensis. Not sure if we've taken a look at this guy before, but definitely the skeleton seems relatively new.
It looks like a frog.
Yeah, it does in this splayed out structure, especially like the back legs. But this is a pretty good find. I mean, for most fossils, especially Triassic, this is not very common. I mean, this isn't common for most dinosaur species. It's only a handful out of the over 1,300 species that have been discovered that come
But
out
you
like
said this
this.
isn't a dinosaur.
Well, if it is, but at the moment it's mentioning that it's a reptile, but we don't know what family, what specific group or order that it belongs to. So, Argentinian scientists have found fossilized bones of one of the world's oldest dinosaur species in the Andes Mountains. It's definitely the what southern part of the Andes. Well, we don't know what specifically region of Argentina this is coming out of at the moment. The paleontological team led by the Institute found the almost complete skeleton of the small, long necked reptile named Horacursor huagensis at an altitude of 3,000 meters or 9,842 feet in Argentina's northwest. Wow, that's quite something. The team found part of the dinosaur's skull, a complete vertebral column extending to the tail, and nearly intact forelimbs and hind limbs. Yeah, it seemed pretty complete. So doesn't sound like now that it's a species of reptile that's a dinosaur, so it would have likely have been a warm-blooded individual. The discovery was published in Nature magazine, with the authors saying it could inform studies into evolution. Wow. And was it also on a side slope too? Let's see. Augustine
How did they
Martinelli.
find stuff like No, they're just laying down. Oh, you're saying
Uh,
side. Okay, I see what you're saying.
One of the authors said that the horror cursor is estimated to have roamed Earth between 230 and 225 million years ago, making it one of the oldest dinosaurs in the world. So this could be somewhere around 5 to 10 million years after the first dinosaurs evolved. So the species lived at the end of the Triassic period, during which the first dinosaurs, this is mid-Triassic, not the end. The end would have been somewhere between 205 and 202 million years ago, during which the first dinosaurs and the ancestors of mammals started to appear. Although the discovered species is part of a lineage of herbivorous dinosaurs that includes long-necked giants, the researchers noted that an adult Hyracursor huagensis only measured about 2 meters in length and weighed approximately 18 kilograms or 40 pounds. That's not surprising for the earliest species of dinosaurs. They were quite small, like size of a small to medium sized dog, or I guess you could say a coyote in this instance. So, this is, I would say, a decent size for, I'm guessing, an herbivore at the time, though it might have been feeding on insects. We're not sure about the jaw structure. But yeah, this was really good to see. Is there anything else? Nope. Okay. Let's head over to the next video. Oh boy. Oh no, not one of these circumstances. I don't think I've seen it where the elephant has smushed the hippo. Oh, whoa. What was that about?
Oh, he's definitely going after him.
Was he trying to get a breath of air?
That's what it looked like.
I've never seen a hippo do that. Well, if, in that manner. Usually it's just when they're trying to intimidate other
Is that one searching for one too?
hippos, probably. I think that's a female.
What happens though if they get their trunk in the hippo's mouth?
Yeah, it's got a problem.
Yeah. Well,
Hippo could easily pierce through that trunk. Probably bite it off.
eh, can't find him. Uh,
That is interesting. I wonder if that was like a smaller female. Well, they're gone. I mean, hippos on average can stay submerged for around 5 minutes, but he seemed to be struggling with his breath.
I've tried to do that, I never could.
Just need a better oxygen environment. So, from the University of California.edu, DNA study clarifies relationship between polar bears and brown bears. Now, this is a bit of an earlier finding, but let's see if there's something new. See, at the end of so here we have a couple of polar bears, probably on some ice floe.
I don't know, I keep doing that.
So let's see. At the end of the last ice age, a population of polar bears was stranded by the receding ice on a few islands in southeastern Alaska. There is evidence for polar bears inhabiting different parts of southern Alaska during the Pleistocene or the Ice Age, so over um, 50,000 years ago. And as well, um, actually, no, like even further back, over 100 to 150,000 years ago, different parts of mainland Europe. And we're talking like even as far south as possibly southern Germany, maybe even parts of northern Italy. Same thing for different reindeer herds at the time. So let's see. That's also not including different species of mammoths, cave lions. So male brown bears swam across to the islands from the Alaskan mainland and mated with female polar bears, eventually transforming the polar bear population into brown bears. Polar bears are genetically a very homogeneous species with no evidence of brown bear genes in the population. Homogeneous tends to mean that a population is not um, mixing genetics um, with another population that has a different type of genetic lineage. So, evidence for this surprising scenario emerged from a new genetic study of polar bears and brown bears led by researchers at the University of California, Santa Cruz. The findings published March 14th in Plus Genetics and prevailing ideas about the evolutionary history of the two species, which are closely related and known to produce fertile hybrids. I mean, the polar bear did evolve from the brown bear, so it's not too surprising.
Wait, I thought it just said they turned them into brown bears.
No, I'm talking about very far into their evolution, like when the brown bear and the polar bear split.
Oh,
Um, but no, this was much later in the
so
much later
the
in time.
polar bear just turned black.
Well, yeah, he ended up turning black, and this time he's going back to brown. So, because polar bear skin is black and their fur is transparent, it's not white.
So does it heat up? Is that why it's
It
black?
seems that way. For It seems that yeah, the black skin is used to help heat its body. I believe there's another reason for this mutation. Also, is there something else? Oh, so when it comes to Southeast Alaska today, it's not referring to the coastal brown bears that some people might be more familiar with, like especially the Kodiaks or the ones that tend to inhabit that area with the Brooks Falls. And it's a famous area for fishing or where they fish for salmon, but that's only in a small area in Katmai National Park of southern mainland Alaska. Whereas we're referring to the areas off of the Tongass National Forest, which is an immense protected area over in southeast Alaska, and then even certain brown bears off the coast of British Columbia, Canada, so just south of southeast Alaska. So these brown bears are a bit smaller compared to the Kodiak brown bears, but they still can reach around 11,000, maybe even 1,100 pounds, certain males. So let's see. Previous studies suggested that past hybridization had resulted in all polar bears having genes that came from brown bears, but the new study indicates that episodes of gene flow between the two species occurred only in isolated populations and did not affect the larger polar bear population, which remains free of brown bear genes. If you're talking about current brown bear genes, yes. If you go far enough back into the Pleistocene, there are small traces of brown bear genes in polar bears because it is the ancestor to the polar bear. At the center of the confusion is a population of brown bears that live on Alaska's Admiralty, Baranof, and Chichikov Islands, known as the ABC Islands. So this is over. These are part of the Tongass National Forest. It hosts some of the densest brown bear populations on Earth, and it's also within the temperate rainforests of the area. So it's a much different ecosystem than with what you see with Kodiak brown bears. Not that there isn't some forest where the Kodiak brown bears live, but it's vastly different. It's much more dense over in southeast Alaska. These bears, clearly brown bears in appearance and behavior, have striking genetic similarities to polar bears. ABC Island's brown bears are more closely related to female polar bears than to male polar bears. This population of brown bears stood out as being really weird genetically, and there's been a long controversy about the relationship to polar bears. We can now explain it, and instead of the convoluted history some have proposed, it's a very simple story. Said co author Beth Shapiro, Associate Professor of Ecology and Evolutionary Biology at UC Santa Cruz. So, Shapiro and her colleagues analyzed genome wide DNA sequence data from 7 polar bears: an ABC Islands brown bear, a mainland Alaskan brown bear, and a black bear. Interesting. They just stuck a black bear, a single one, to the project, as well as like a single Alaskan brown bear. This is a very small DNA assessment. The study also included genetic data from other bears that was recently published by other researchers. I guess that might help a bit. We don't know how many bears are coming from these other studies. Let's see. Shapiro's team found that polar bears are a remarkably homogeneous species with no evidence of brown bear ancestry. Um, recent brown bear ancestry, whereas the ABC Islands brown bears show clear evidence of polar bear ancestry. A key finding.
Wait, you were correcting the article.
Um, well, I think that's what it's trying to get at, specifically like recent in these certain other areas. Okay, so let's take a deeper look. So, a key finding is that the polar bear ancestry of ABC Islands, these 3 specific areas over in the Tongass National Forest, brown bears, is conspicuously enriched in the maternally inherited X chromosome. About 6.5% of the X chromosomes of the ABC Islands bears came recently from polar bears, compared to about 1% of the rest of their genome. This means that the ABC Islands brown bears share more DNA with polar bear females than they do with polar bear males. To understand, huh, that is interesting, specifically polar bear females. To understand how hybridization could lead to this unexpected result, the team ran simulations of various demographic scenarios. Of all the models we tested, the best supported was the scenario in which male brown bears wandered onto the islands and gradually transformed the population from polar bears into brown bears. Said first author James Hill, graduate student in ecology and evolutionary biology at UC Santa Cruz. Um, that is quite interesting. So it seems that there were female polar bears in the area, and the male brown bears from the mainland came over and started creating more brown bear like bears. This scenario, which I mean, if you look at a polar bear hybrid, polar bear grizzly bear hybrid today, it does have a bit more of a grizzly bear look to it, or brown bear. But you can also see the polar bear characteristics, but it's definitely more brownish than it is. I guess
Are
you
they
could say.
rounder also?
Um, mm,
Because
I
even fat
I
polar bears have a tendency not to look exactly round.
I would say it could look a little more heavily built, considering brown bears, especially if you're comparing a Kodiak, are much more heavily built compared to polar
So if
bears.
you mixed a Kodiak with a polar bear,
It's not a good looking bear, but it is going to be
well,
more
I was
heavily
gonna
built.
say for Fat Bear Week.
Oh, yeah, the polar bear, if it gets enough seals, well, the roller bear or Pizzly bear
Is that what
is,
it's called?
yeah, um, it would probably win. Um, so let's see, especially if it's coming from probably like the male polar bear and female Kodiak. So let's see. So it's possible even for the other side. Let's see. This scenario is consistent with the known behavior of brown bears and polar bears, according to co-author Ian Sterling, a biologist at the University of Alberta in Edmonton, Canada. This is also a major polar bear specialist.
I was gonna say, does he get into everything?
I bet, like, especially if it's big studies or larger, things involving polar bears, then probably.
They want his name on it.
Yep. Mixing of polar bears and brown bears is seen today in the Canadian Beaufort Sea, where adult male brown bears wander onto the remaining sea ice in late spring and sometimes mate with female polar bears. It's not too common. I mean, it occurs, but not to the extent that different media outlets make it out to be. In other media outlets. In areas such as Western Hudson Bay and the Russian coast. Um, okay, it's just all right. Let's see. Young male brown bears tend to leave the area where they were born in search of new territory. They may well have dispersed across the water from the Alaskan mainland to the ABC Islands and hybridized with polar bears stranded there when the sea ice disappeared. The combination of genetics and the known behavior of brown and polar bears hybridizing in the wild today tells us how the ABC Island bears came to be. They are the descendants of many male brown bear immigrants and some female polar bears from long ago. The findings suggest that continued climate. Um, okay, let's see. Is there anything else? Okay, the first genetic studies of ABC Island's brown bears looked at their mitochondrial DNA, which is separate from the chromosomes and is inherited only through the female lineage. The mitochondrial DNA of ABC Island's brown bears matches that of polar bears more closely than that of other brown bears, which led some scientists to think that the ABC Island brown bears gave rise to modern polar bears. Um, Wait a second. How long ago? How long ago was this? Like how long specifically did it mention that this occurred in the Pleistocene? And it doesn't give us a time. So it says at the end of the last ice age, polar bears have been around for a much longer period than 11 to 20,000 years. Okay, where were we? All right, here we go. The new study looks at the nuclear DNA carried on the chromosomes in the cell nucleus. It is the latest in a series of genetic studies of polar bears published in recent years, each of which has prompted new ideas about the relationship between polar bears and brown bears. The 2010 study of fossils and mitochondrial DNA supported the idea that polar bears evolved from the ABC Islands brown bears. But a 2011 study of mitochondrial DNA from extinct Irish brown bears showed an even closer match to polar bears and suggested that polar bears got their mitochondrial DNA from hybridization with Irish bears. So Shapiro, a co-author of that study, said she
Those
now
bears drink a lot.
um yeah, it seems that way. Well, that's probably how they went extinct. Said she now thinks the Irish brown bears may be another example of what happened in the ABC Islands. So I think brown bears over like different parts of Russia, they're more into, well, obviously non-whiskey beverage.
Well, they drink vodka.
Yeah. Let's see. So, she said she now thinks the Irish brown bears may be another example of what happened in the ABC Islands, but she can't say for sure until she studies her nuclear DNA. Okay. Let's see. So they get into conflict with the Russian brown bears a lot. Let's see. In retrospect, I think we were wrong about the directionality of the gene flow between polar bears and Irish brown bears. Two studies published in 2012 sought to determine when the polar bear lineage diverged from the brown bear lineage using nuclear DNA data. The first, published in April in Science, put the split at 600,000 years ago and concluded that polar bears carry brown bear mitochondrial DNA due to past hybridizations. The second, published in July in Proceedings of the National Academy of Sciences, suggested that brown bears, black bears, and polar bears diverged around 4 to 5 million years ago. So during the Pliocene epoch, this is before the major ice ages of the Pleistocene, which started a little over 2 million years ago, followed by repeated episodes of hybridization between polar bears and brown bears. Hmm. So the new study does not address the question of how long ago polar bears diverged from brown bears, but it may help sort out the conflicting results of recent studies. It's a good step in the right direction of understanding what really happened. The study does indicate that the divergence of polar bears from brown bears was only half as long ago as the split between the brown bear and black bear lineages. We can tell how long brown bears and polar bears have been separate species as a proportion of how long ago they separated from more distantly related species, but putting a year on it is very difficult. I'm also guessing they're referring to the American black bear, though it's probably possible with the Asiatic brown bear and the Asiatic black bear too. The Asiatic black bear is a distinct species from the American black bear. Okay, so Green noted that efforts to understand the relationship between polar bears and brown bears has been complicated by the unusual case of the ABC Islands brown bears. It's as if you were studying the relationship between humans and chimpanzees, and your analysis included DNA from some weird population of humans that had hybridized with chimps. Whoa! You would get very strange results
Wait,
until you
what?
figure that out. Okay, no. That why no. um Okay, a better um let's see, what is something that would actually be a good comparison?
What?
Probably
I don't know what to say
if
there.
you said chimpanzees and bonobos, that would make sense. Not this, not hominids and chimps. That is no. Okay. I geesh, I didn't think that I would want to leave a bear article. I mean, I let's head over to the next video. That was weird. Oh, well. Langer monkey, and he's chained. Oh, um,
It's
yeah, it looked interesting at first, and
he has a chain on him?
yeah, he does. See that collar?
Oh.
Yeah, that is not one that's going to be frolicking in the temples of fruit. And I don't mean that as a joke. There are different temples specifically for the monkeys, and because I believe they're considered sacred there, and you can feed
How
them a wide
sacred can
variety.
they be if you're going to chain them up like that?
Oh, yeah, good point. Well, um, I thought you were going to mention the macaques that consistently rob everybody, and you have to negotiate with them in order for them to possibly give you back your glasses or even phone, backpack. Or like, well, what do you have in return? I mean, you've got to give me something.
I know you're being robbed
Yeah,
on
it's
the
like
street.
you just stole it. It's like, yeah, it's the natural way, but you have to give me something now. Hmm. A fruit? You have a whole bag of them? Okay. I think maybe if you give them like one or two of whatever, possibly even a thing of bananas, then they might give you your phone or sunglasses or whatever back. But um yeah, I think it tends to work. So let's see. I think I've even caught it where you might offer them fruit, but if they know you have like potato chips or something, like, no, I like that
Yeah,
the
I've seen that.
that stuff tastes all right. No. They even, they make their finger gestures. Come on.
I saw
Mm.
that pack of cookies you're holding.
Oh, that too. Um, but yeah, they're very they're quite intelligent, but annoying as well. I guess it's good as long as there's not a whole mob of them after you. Those can get pretty bad. Well, anyway, moving forward, I don't think they've ever done that to like a wolf article, but that was interesting. So from wildlife.org, JWM, caribou adjust their migrations in response to snow.
What snow?
Oh yeah, that is quite strange. Sometime in the fall. Wait, no, not the fall. This is, I believe, either late winter or early spring because of how much velvet they're growing on their antlers.
What do you think this is?
Or do we know where?
No,
Not
doesn't
yet.
say.
Hmm. I'm not sure. Caribou that migrate across northern Ontario, so we're over in eastern Canada. Adjust the way they move in a given winter based on the amount of snowfall. This new discovery, the result of years of GPS tracking collar analysis, shows that the northern ungulates, or two-toed animals, must be somewhat resilient to some of. It's possibly a positive to show that they have this flexibility. The flexibility, said Alexis Pereira, a wildlife research analyst with the Ontario Ministry of Natural Resources.
Well, don't skip it. Explain why you're not adding it in.
Well, it's just consistently with many of these articles, they have to add in the whole climate change propaganda. Um, Anyway, let's keep going. Ontario has two ecotypes of woodland caribou, Rangifer tarandus caribou. The forest tundra group typically moves from the peatlands around the coast of Hudson Bay, where they calve in the summer, to forested areas in the winter. These animals typically make their seasonal treks together in large herds. The boreal or forest dwelling ecotype is found farther south around James Bay. These individuals are more sedentary, not migrating as far when they do move. The females typically remain more isolated from other individuals in the summer when they calve rather than sticking to large communal calving grounds. That is interesting with caribou during the calving season. So around late May, early June, they like to have their own private space. So now you could say in some instances it makes them a bit more, I guess, what susceptible to predators, but at the same time, it's harder for predators to have access to different individuals. So let's see. So Piera, who was a master's student at the University of Guelph at the time of this research, and her colleagues wanted to see how weather conditions and other factors affected caribou migrations each year. They gathered tracking data from GPS collars placed on 109 caribou from both ecotypes between 2011 and 2018, with some years missing in the middle of that period. Hmm. Um, Also, when it comes to reindeer, it's still a bit of a debate. Like, there is a possibility of certain subspecies actually being their own distinct species of caribou, especially over in Canada. In a study published recently in the Journal of Wildlife Management, the team found that individual caribou in both the northern tundra forest ecotype and the more southern forest dwelling ecotype was flexible in their yearly migrations. The average snowfall during the winter seemed to be the main factor dictating their migratory behavior. For both ecotypes, reindeer migrated longer distances when there was heavier snowfall. When there was less snowfall, the forest dwelling caribou in the south either migrated less or didn't migrate at all, while the forest tundra caribou moved shorter distances. That is, wait, forest dwelling. Oh, forest tundra. Um, hmm. Forest tundra tends to mean that there's sparse trees here and there, almost like a spruce, a spruce bushy moss savanna to an extent. I'm just trying to compare it to an African landscape, but um, so you do see Christmas trees here and there, and then there's the forest caribou that inhabits more dense forested areas. Now, this isn't talking about the woodland caribou, which is associated with Western Canada, especially in different parts of British Columbia and into the Yukon. So let's see. As a few animals in the more nomadic group, the tundra forest ecotype. So this is specifically within, it's not a grassland, but specifically just the flat. Well, somewhat. You can have many areas of tundra. They're actually quite hilly or somewhat mountainous, but there aren't really any trees in the landscape. If there are, it's probably because a moose walked over and, well, some seeds germinated. Maybe even bears too. Few animal. Oh, I already said that. Okay, the tundra forest ecotype in the north. Hold on a second. Oh, tundra forest. Okay, this is the area with the tundra and then sporadic trees. In the north didn't migrate some years, sticking around the coast of Hudson Bay in the winter. That is interesting. Hudson Bay is a huge area. Different parts of the Nunavut territories encompass it. Manitoba, like where Churchill is, also known as the polar bear capital of the world. And then Ontario and possibly some part of Quebec, which you also have reindeer in these different areas too. The reindeer and caribou are the same thing. Let's see. So, the correlation between movement and snow surprised Pereira and her colleagues since there's a common idea that deep snow makes it harder to move. The team isn't entirely sure why snow affects caribou migratory behavior. They only had yearly snowfall averages for this study rather than specific data from different regions. But Piera speculated that heavy snowfall might affect their access to food. forcing them to travel larger distances to sustain themselves. I mean, that would make sense. Let's see. Yeah, I mean, it's going to have a big effect on a population. For example, for the forest tundra ecotype, those individuals may move to wooded areas that offer more accessible lichen. While forests often do have deeper snow, lichen doesn't only grow on the ground but also grows on tree trunks, where it might be less buried by snow and easier for caribou to reach.
I always forget, what is lichen?
So it's a type of fungi that occurs on trees. And you can find lichen, it's not just over in different parts of Canada. You can find it in a wide range of different areas of the United States, but particularly in areas where it's a lot more humid. Supposedly, it can also be a sign of a low amount of pollution or neutral to an extent. But I've seen lichen in certain areas where there was a bit of pollution and it was covering the trees. So, it might depend on the species though.
I always get
However,
confused and think it's moss.
no, it has its own distinct type of, texture. In fact, it's a lot rougher. Also, moss tends to be a somewhat sort of like rough, fluffy to an extent. I don't know how else to describe it, but, caribou or reindeer will feed on different species of lichen and moss. It also differs on the time of year as well. There are also tundra grasses that they will feed on. So when I said that, the tundra is not necessarily a grassland, yes, it is true that it's dominated by these different types of fungi as well as plants. Moss is a plant. There are tundra grasses as well. You might even have it where they'll munch on certain species of fruit too. So let's see. Do not ever. I mean, I'm just mentioning this because they'll show it in movies, and then news outlets will attack people. But it is horrible to feed candy canes to reindeer or caribou. That will just um, do horrible things to their digestive system if it's not fatal. So let's see. Is there another thing? Get no gingerbread cookies, no cookies at all.
Wait, but
Um,
in Japan, they feed cookies to the deer.
okay, well, I don't know what those are made out of, and that's a Sika deer. It's going to be feeding on, um,
Cookies all the time?
yeah, what was the other thing? It's going to be feeding on different types of vegetation. Sika deer do not, which is the native deer of Japan. You can find them in Russia, different parts of China. They feed on different species of vegetation compared to the reindeer. I think I already said that. They don't coexist with the reindeer. Now, they possibly used to back in the Ice Age because you had it where reindeer were living much further south and into Japan. But where is that? Oh, you mentioned the cookies, Japanese deer cookies. I don't know what specific ingredients they're putting in that. It's probably a certain amount of protein and calcium to help with building their antlers. So, yeah, but reindeer also they feed on specific species of moss and lichen. Okay, let's keep going. So, well, forests don't often do have deeper snow. Lichen doesn't only grow on the ground, but also grows on tree trunks. I already said that. Other factors that the team examined, such as vegetation estimates didn't seem to correlate with migration distance. Neither did human disturbance, while some research in other parts of the north has found that caribou avoid linear features like roads, seismic lines, or power lines, since wolves use these to hunt moose and occasionally caribou. Guerra's teams didn't find such a relationship in northern Ontario.
Okay. Wheat,
Huh.
wheat flour, rice, bran, and water.
So I guess it's just quite a few carbs for the deer. It's
Yeah.
not really a substantial food source. So I'm wondering what they're feeding on because they're in quite I guess they're in like an open park. I haven't seen footage of specifically where the Sika deer in these areas adjacent to populated areas in Japan, like where they actually inhabit.
It says they also sell deer-shaped cookies for people, which contain sugar, butter, eggs, and not
Yeah.
to be fed to the deer.
You don't no are we there yet incidents.
Yeah, that wouldn't be good.
Okay, so overall, she said no. So the deer wouldn't get a sugar rush; it would just, if anything, get sick or perish. Overall, she said that the discovery that woodland caribou migration is flexible is good news. Okay, it just kind of repeated itself like earlier in the article, but that is really interesting that the caribou are not avoiding the roads, seismic lines, or power lines because, especially forest dwelling caribou, tend to be a lot more picky in some instances when it comes to certain types of habitat circumstances. And with this, you have to take things like roads and power lines into account because it has a pretty drastic effect on the ecosystem. So that's interesting to see. They're actually somewhat using them. Okay, so let's see what's going on here over in Yellowstone. So um, sometimes you forget that there's going to be snow on the ground and the bison hits the dance floor. Full option heavyweight build. Oh, okay. So it seems to be a male.
It looks like a deer.
Yeah, he seems to be. I mean, he is related. Whoa. Oh, wow. Um, I guess he's pretty excited. Seems to be pretty relaxed,
Yeah, he doesn't seem to be upset by anything.
except his tail being bitten off.
Well, I didn't do it.
Probably a wolf. Oh, he seems quite healthy and frolicking. That's good to see. Just used to when bison um pop up in Yellowstone tends to be something not too great. We are going to take a 2-minute break. We'll be right back. Okay, so moving forward from biosurvey.ku.edu. The only thing that can hit my mind is Kentucky or Kuwait, but I doubt this is where this is occurring.
But it's EDU.
Yeah, I was just guessing by the KU. I'm not sure what that stands for.
I don't either.
The University of Kansas. Study of spatial synchrony using long term data exposes ecological trends, could boost conservation farming. Okay. Oh, here we have a couple of muskox. Well, three. Okay, Lawrence. Populations of animals and plants separated by even thousands of miles can rise and fall together, driven by ecological factors, a phenomenon scientists call spatial synchrony. Well, I guess the Ice Age megafauna can relate, except it was over a longer period of time. But I'd say within 40,000 year time span, there was a massive die off. First, starting really in Australia. So let's see. A new study from the University of Kansas in Ecology Letters reveals the study of spatial synchrony over a long enough time scale leads to better testing of ideas, improves statistical results and new conceptual realms for understanding ecology, conserving species and farming more profitably. There are many examples of this, said lead author Daniel Ruman, professor of ecology and evolutionary biology at KU and senior scientist with the Kansas Biological Survey and Center for Ecological Research. One study from the early 2000s examined two populations of muskox on opposite sides of the Greenland ice sheet. Even though they were separated by 1,000 miles of ice, their populations fluctuated in sync. They had good years and bad years at the same time. Ruman said his study reviews his. I'm keep thinking of a five-chambered stomach every time I see that name. I think it's spelled differently. Ruman said his study reviews the most important conceptual developments in spatial synchrony over the past 20 years. One of these is timescale structure. Populations don't just fluctuate, they do so on multiple timescales simultaneously. They might change on an annual basis as expected, but they also fluctuate on decimal scales and beyond. The causes of these fluctuations vary, and synchrony can differ depending on the timescale. Along these lines, Ruman and his co authors found studies focused on longer term timescales could be considerably more valuable to scientific understanding than those with shorter times considerations. Okay, where are the animals?
Well, Floppy Rabbit just put up a dancing cat.
Okay, well, I mean, yeah, I guess the tigers appreciated from it earlier.
You said where are the animals?
Oh, right. Um, gosh, where are they? What? I'm looking for muskox. What? This is what?
Apparently, I did not pick a good article.
What? This is sad. Hold on a second. Was there something up there? Did we already see it? No, I think it was just a repeat of that little thing further down. Well, that was unfortunate. These large goats, which is what muskox are, weighing around 900 pounds or a little over 430 kilograms. Gosh, how could you? Don't hurt any Arctic wolves for a while. Okay. Because Arctic wolves feed on them. Okay, so here we have two male lions. Well, once at a roadblock. I guess that's
And
a younger.
I'm going to lay on your heads.
Yeah, it's funny. Definitely the wet season. I think they're in the Ngorongoro crater over in Tanzania, northern Tanzania. So it's technically a part of the Serengeti ecosystem, but unfortunately, they do not have connections, at least at the moment, with lion populations outside of it. So this population of lions has a low genetic variety. There are wildebeest and zebra in the region. There's a small number of them that do migrate out of the crater, but they don't make the same trek that the larger annual wildebeest and zebra migration make. I believe even possibly no, not the giraffes. Okay, so from Pew.org, um, killer whale attack altered beluga's behavior in Hudson Bay. Melting Arctic sea ice gave predators access to a sensitive breeding area. I mean, it annually melts each year, so and you do have orcas over in the Arctic. They make it out like it's a new phenomenon with orcas in the Arctic. They've been here for quite some time.
Wait,
So,
we're not in the Arctic.
yeah, so I mentioned Hudson. Well, Hudson Bay, I guess you could
No,
say is
you
somewhat.
said they've been here.
Well, I was referring to Hudson Bay as here, but
Uh,
um, part of it could be the subarctic. So technically, like where Churchill, Manitoba is the subarctic, not necessarily the Arctic, and that can go for a wide area of Hudson Bay. So here we have some belugas, somewhat submerged. Think I can't tell if those are walruses or rocks. I don't know. It might be rocks.
I can't tell either. They've gotta be rocks.
Let's see. A killer whale attack in 2012 on beluga whales in Canada's western Hudson Bay caused the belugas to temporarily flee their summer habitat and is raising new questions about how. Uh, again, the
Seriously?
trend of earlier spring ice melt has increased the number of earlier spring ice melt. I don't think it's melting any quicker. It definitely like the amount that it freezes hasn't really changed since the 1980s, 1970s. Okay, let's see. Anyway, the number of killer whales in Hudson Bay, so it has increased in recent years and allowed them access to the shallow estuaries where belugas breed, give birth, and feed in summer. Killer whales are about twice the size of belugas. They're bigger than that and are known to also prey on bowhead whales, walruses, seals, and other marine mammals. Yeah, practically anything in the region.
Which includes us.
Us, polar bears, anything they can get their mouth on. Well, not really us. Now, they have been attacking boats recently. I haven't been hearing of anything where they attacked the people, or ate them. But why they're attacking boats, I'm not
They
entirely
wanna
sure of.
put the mass of the boat on their head.
Oh, right, like a not a sea otter, but was it a sea otter? What was that
No, it
thing?
wasn't a sea
Oh, it
otter.
was a shark.
Yeah, it was
I
a
think
shark. No, was it the shark?
might be a variety of creatures, but sharks,
Salmon. It was
squid.
salmon, wasn't it?
Oh, right, yeah, salmon as, like, hats or,
Yeah, wearing their
uh,
heads as hats.
display structures, so that's quite funny and interesting. Killer whales are a fairly new predator in Hudson Bay, so we don't know what overall impact they will have on belugas. Okay, so it might be, uh, in a certain area over in Hudson Bay, maybe they just haven't been seen recently, but they definitely are in the Arctic. Now, it's a slightly older article, but not too long of a time span for how long, um, orcas have been in the Arctic for. Wetstall was one of 5 scientists who studied the attack, which took place at high tide near the mouth of the Seal River in August 2012. They interviewed experienced guides and tourists on nearby boat who first noticed 2 groups of killer whales, including 3 large males swimming offshore in about 150 meters or 500 feet of water. All of a sudden, 4 of the killer whales swam closer to shore and began chasing the belugas, which thrashed and fled into water that was less than 2 meters or 6.5 feet deep. Eventually, the belugas clumped together in an attempt to withstand the attack, which lasted more than an hour. There was no evidence that any belugas died. Wow, they really stood up to those 4 killer whales. Wonder how many there were. Specifically belugas.
I would think, the killer whales would have trouble in 4 feet of water, but they can come out of the water, so
Oh, right. Yeah, that's a bit risky. No, you do have it where they somewhat beach themselves and they're grabbing seals and efficiently getting back into the ocean. So, the 3 weeks earlier, Westall and other scientists had tagged 6 belugas in the Seal River with satellite transmitters as part of a larger study of how the whales use the estuaries in this region. That allowed the team to track the whales' behavior during and after the attack and compare it to earlier movements. The researchers found that the belugas reduced their range in the hours after the assault. Then, in the days immediately following, swam 3 times as far as they had before the attack. Wow, that's quite some distance.
somebody wanted to get away.
Moving north to evade the killer whales before returning to the mouth of the Seal River. Such an increase in movement takes a lot of energy during a time when belugas are raising their calves. Repeated attacks could affect the health of this population in the long run. The study also points to the need to protect a wider swath of beluga habitat if the whales are to thrive. Our research found that belugas may be ranging farther along the western coast of Hudson Bay than we previously suspected in the summer season. This information is important when it comes to conservation measures that are being considered. The Oceans North Canada team is working with the Manitoba provincial and federal governments to establish a marine conservation area in Western Hudson Bay that could help protect the sensitive habitat and the marine animals that depend on it. It is interesting. Um, when it comes to marine protected areas, because I only found out about them in recent years. I didn't realize that it was possible to have a protected marine area. I thought it was just terrestrial or land based places that you could have a national park or a national coral reef area. And I know there's quite a few around many different countries.
Yeah, but we didn't even start studying marine life until how many years ago?
I mean, I was definitely taking a look into it, but well over, 15 years ago. But um, it's just when it comes to these specific protected areas, I'm surprised that Hudson Bay, because of that, doesn't have a protected area, but maybe due to the limited activity that occurs in the area, they just don't see a need for it. So let's see. Anything else? What happened right after, say, moving north before returning to the mouth of the Seal River? I'm not exactly sure what's occurring here because I don't know specifically where the Seal River is adjacent to Western Hudson Bay. We also don't know how many belugas there were. I'm actually shocked that they didn't give a number. Um, at least it doesn't seem that way. We just know that there were 4 killer whales. Odd. Hmm. I mean, this picture, there's 6, it looks like, but we don't know if this was in that specific area either. Now I will say Hudson Bay does tend to have a bit of a rocky coast in many instances compared to many types of beaches that people tend to associate with. And that can be the case with many beaches further north. But let's see. Anything else? Or you taking a look at another video? Oh, okay. I guess it's about it. That's also unfortunate with the Tigers. They didn't give us a number on that either. And that was a recent one. Let's see. Was there anything else? This was a bit odd, at least what occurred. Even with the reindeer, I don't think he gave us a number. The muskox, there wasn't anything when it came to the muskox. And let's see. Just mentioned the two opposite populations within Greenland. Let's see. Yeah, and the brown bear and polar bear thing, I'm gonna have to dive a bit more into that because it only gave a certain like a I think one number, and it was a 6.5%. But they also only used a handful of individuals, but there was something that didn't dive into like it just didn't seem to be like enough percentages on there. So that was a bit odd. I'm trying to think of anything else real quick. Um, that might be it. So we'll see you tomorrow. And from Prehistoric, thanks for joining.
What? We changed the times.
What? No? Wait,
Monday,
yeah,
Wednesday, Friday.
um, okay. We will see you next time.
Wednesday?
Yeah, Wednesday. And from Prehistoric to Present, my name is Ethan. This is Creature Guy Live Daily News. And remember that nothing is better than all animals all the time.